The 2023 FIFA Women's World Cup will see the best footballers on the planet do battle. The USA's next generation has arrived in the form of Trinity Rodman, while Italy has raised the bar after their success at France 2019. Immerse yourself in the biggest sporting event of the year with the Contenders. The United States squad is full of experienced stars who have proven themselves on the big stage time and time again. But with some of their household names coming towards the end of their careers, the U.S. are starting to look to the future. The reigning world champions have blooded some exciting young prospects over the past 12 months, including the prodigiously talented Trinity Rodman. The forward is the daughter of NBA legend and Basketball Hall of Famer Dennis Rodman, but she's determined to create a legacy of her own.
Obviously, this has been my dream forever. I've been playing soccer since I was 4 years old, and in every school paper, everything I wrote, I want to be a professional soccer player. I want to be a professional soccer player. And I think right now, just with COVID and everything, I think honestly, a lot of people can say it's not the right time, but right now I think it's a perfect time to get in there and learn and become a better player.
At 18 years of age, Rodman became the youngest player selected in the National Women's Soccer League draft when the Washington Spirit acquired her with the second pick in January 2021.
With the second pick in the first round of the 2021 NWSL draft, the Washington Spirit select Trinity Rodman from Washington State University.
Rodman became an instant hit, bursting onto the scene with a maiden NWSL goal just 5 minutes into her professional debut.
The number 2 pick, minutes into her debut, scores for the Spirit. It's a magical start to her professional career.
It was the start of a memorable debut season for Rodman, taking out the NWSL Rookie of the Year award.
Rodman absolutely on fire. First stretch there in the second half, looking to light it up again. The header! Washington takes the lead!
Her 7 goals and 7 assists inspired the Spirit to a maiden league championship as she rocketed to U.S. soccer superstardom. Washington rewarded Rodman with a lucrative 4-year contract, making her the highest paid player in the NWSL. Shortly after signing that bumper new deal, Rodman made her debut for the U.S. national team. And her meteoric rise was capped off with a 2022 Ballon d'Or nomination. A quick, powerful, tenacious, and selfless player, Rodman has the potential to light up the 2023 Women's World Cup. As the U.S. look to defend their World Cup crown and make it a three-peat of titles, Rodman shapes as a menacing threat who could give her side a new dimension in attack. With Rodman one of an array of talented youngsters in the American squad, the future of U.S. soccer has arrived. Up next, Italy is aiming to bounce back from a forgettable Euro 2022 campaign. After 20 years in the football wilderness, Italy are becoming Women's World Cup regulars. while the men's team failed to qualify for another World Cup in 2022. Italy's women's side had no such issues, qualifying for a second straight global showpiece. The 2019 World Cup was Italy's first appearance at the women's finals since 1999, and it proved to be a memorable tournament for Le Azzurre. Group stage wins over Australia and Jamaica secured their passage through to the round of 16, where they defeated China to reach the quarterfinals for just the second time in their history. Italy's revival has been led by head coach Melina Bertolini, an astute tactician who has been at the helm since 2017. But after reaching the last 8 at the 2019 World Cup, Italy came crashing down to earth at Euro 2022. They failed to win a game at the Euros, never recovering from a 5-1 hammering to France in their opening game.
I wasn't expecting to play against France and be losing 5-0 after the first half. I wasn't expecting that.
Italy shrugged off their disappointing Euros campaign to qualify for the 2023 World Cup in dominant fashion. They won 9 of 10 games to clinch automatic qualification ahead of Switzerland, keeping an impressive 9 clean sheets in the process. They also boast some exciting attacking firepower, with Cristiana Girelli, Ariana Caruso, and Valentina Giacinti scoring 22 goals between them in qualifying. But after punching their ticket to Australia and New Zealand, a run of 5 straight defeats followed, showing there's still plenty of work to do for this Italian side. For Italy to progress to the round of 16, they'll have to navigate their way past former world champions Sweden, Argentina, and tournament debutante South Africa in Group G. Competing at their 4th Women's World Cup, Italy will be aiming to top the group like they did in 2019. Their quest to make the knockout stage for the 3rd time begins against Argentina on July 24 in Auckland. An intriguing clash against the Swedes on July 29 in Wellington is likely to determine who will advance to the round of 16 as the group winner. While women's football was first played in 1895, the first professional league wasn't established until nearly 100 years later. In 1988, Sweden became the first country to introduce a professional women's domestic league. The Scandinavians led the way in women's club football, turning professional, as other nations eventually followed suit. It took the USA, the most successful team in women's international football, until 2012 to create a financially sustainable professional competition, the National Women's Soccer League. The NWSL held the mantle of the best league in the world for some time, but the landscape has changed since the emergence of women's football in Europe, particularly in England.
Having Manchester United in the women's game is a massive thing. It's huge. The global reach, the fan base, just the way the club delivers is on another level to anything I've ever experienced. And I did genuinely feel this club can take the women's game forward.
Since turning professional in 2018, England's Women's Super League has fast become one of the top leagues in the world, home to some of the world's best players.
I've said it before, this will be the best league, if it's not already the best league in the world.
I think Chelsea's one of the biggest clubs in the world, and once I kind of had my mind set on Europe, it was kind of an easy decision to choose Chelsea as a club.
I've just heard so many great things about the WSL, and obviously there's been some huge signings in the recent years. And some of my teammates from the U.S. national team have come over, and the positive feedback that I've gotten from a lot of my teammates and players that I know that are playing here, I wanted to challenge myself and play in a different league than I'm used to.
It's also backed by significant investment, with Barclays pouring tens of millions of pounds into women's football in the UK.
And I think today's announcement demonstrates that we've got the pulling power to bring the very best to our league and, importantly, put their money in the right places. And, you know, you tell me a league in the world in the women's game that can attract a sponsor like that with a level of investment. It's absolutely brilliant.
The WSL has seen its average attendance increase a whopping 227% on last season, harnessing the momentum of England's triumph at Euro 2022.
Well, first and foremost, there wasn't any opportunities for players to be full-time, and obviously I sit now here as a full-time women's footballer. You look back at the crowds that we were getting and how much they've improved now. Obviously the FA Cup final recently, 40-odd thousand people going to Wembley. I think it's just incredible.
More attendance records have tumbled across Europe, with Barcelona attracting crowds of over 91,000 to Champions League games at Camp Nou. It exemplified the exponential growth of women's club football in Europe.
I don't think we have a ceiling yet as a game, I think, which is exciting. We can really take the game as far as it wants to go.
Coming up, how women's football was impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. The COVID-19 pandemic has wreaked havoc on sport around the world since early 2020, including football. All club competitions and major tournaments were either cancelled or postponed, as the game was left to pick up the pieces after months of no matches and empty stadiums.
We all know that this terrible virus that is all across Europe made football and all life in Europe quite impossible. We knew we have to stop the competitions.
The financial fallout was huge, with massive losses posted across the board as the game came to a grinding halt. It forced sporting governing bodies like FIFA into action, who pledged to invest heavily to keep football afloat.
We have put in place as well a COVID relief plan, $1.5 billion to allow our federations to keep football alive. Not the top professional football, but the amateur football, the grassroots football, girls football, boys football, which has suffered a lot with the pandemic.
Hosting a large-scale sporting event like the World Cup doesn't come cheap, especially an expanded version of it. And the crippling financial impact from coronavirus has forced countries into rethinking their plans to host major sporting events. Financial uncertainty caused by the pandemic forced Brazil to withdraw their bid to host the 2023 Women's World Cup. But with the pandemic subsiding, vaccines at the ready, and international travel now permitted, Australia and New Zealand will hope fans flock to the first ever World Cup in the Southern Hemisphere. Over 1.1 million fans attended the 2019 World Cup in France before the pandemic hit. And that number could be broken in 2023.
We think we're going to have full stadiums across the country. We saw this in Canada in 2015. Australians love sport. We're great about women's sports in this country, and we think the Australians will get out and support not only our own team here, but also the other teams that are participating.
While football continues to recover, Australia and New Zealand have been preparing to jointly host the 9th edition of the Women's World Cup. With the COVID-19 pandemic now under control, the Trans-Tasman neighbours can look forward to the tournament going ahead as scheduled. Sydney's Stadium Australia has been given the honour of hosting the final on August 20, with over 80,000 people expected to attend.
It goes in well with our strategy to make sure that coming out of COVID, our state and our nation remains at the forefront of hosting major events, major global events.
The 2023 World Cup is a once-in-a-lifetime chance for Australia and New Zealand to showcase the best their countries have to offer in the post-pandemic era.
It certainly lengthened my career, the COVID pandemic. There were a few years there where we only had a few games here and there, and it was sporadic, and it gave athletes an opportunity to strengthen their bodies and mind and maybe have a little bit of a break. I think sometimes it's good to have a break. So it also meant that there was a real drop in development. So for me professionally, I knew what to do for my body, for my mind. I was experienced. It still was tough, don't get me wrong, without the support. You had to do everything on your own. But I could tick myself over. What I'm finding is that a lot of the younger players have that real gap in development, and I'm not sure that we'll see it until the crop of players that were 7, 8, 9, 10 even are coming into their more formative years later, that we'll see that real gap being a light shined upon it. I think unfortunately if you couldn't move away, I did see a few players move internationally just to continue their football. But yeah, that real growth, that community, that lots of touches on the ball, all the things that you can't get just training by yourself. I think those sort of, strength building characteristics are going to be lacking in a few. A lot of the injuries are starting to happen. ACLs, I feel like that pandemic is its pandemic on its own. A lot of players are getting the ACL tears. Is that because they had very little to do and then so much to do? That real shift and chop and change. So, so many areas that people won't even have noticed until a few years' time. I feel like there was a huge difference in response in terms of allowances made for the pandemic. I felt like male football didn't miss a beat. I mean, all they missed was fans in the crowd. A lot of female teams were stopped, not allowed to come into the centre. We had a lot of instances where the female team and the male team couldn't cross over, which meant that they couldn't train at all. The male side was allowed to continue. They could use all the facilities, but because of that crossover, they didn't want to contaminate. There's a real fear about, breach and people getting sick and then and wiping out the team for the next game. So they just, we'll halt the women's, but we'll continue the men. For the first time ever, it's only 2 years since the last major tournament now because, Tokyo got pushed back. So it's only been a short time since the last tournament. So I think that will help with momentum. So this tournament will be a huge celebration of where we are at with this game and where we can get to. I mean, ticket sales alone have been fantastic. You know, we're moving to bigger stadiums. I think we've shocked a few people in terms of how much demand there is for the women's game here, and it's only going to be amplified by the amount of people that come to our shore and not only experience the football but our great countries.
Still to come, Argentina will be targeting a maiden Women's World Cup win in 2023. Argentina has successfully qualified for back-to-back Women's World Cups, replicating their feat from 2003 and 2007. A third-place finish at the 2022 Copa America was enough for the South Americans to book their ticket to Australia and New Zealand. Yamila Rodriguez was instrumental in Argentina's first podium finish since 2006. The flamboyant forward scored 6 goals to win the tournament's Golden Boot. Rodriguez netted a brace against Paraguay to inspire her side to a 3-1 victory, which secured direct qualification to the 2023 finals. In 2019, Argentina achieved their best ever performance at a Women's World Cup, missing out on a place in the round of 16 by just 2 points. Despite not making it to the knockout stage, they recorded a momentous draw against 2011 world champions Japan, their first ever World Cup point. Their only loss at France 2019 was a slender 1-0 defeat to eventual semi-finalists England.
We showed the world what Argentina is, what the Argentine woman is. The strength, the attitude, and also that with humility, you can be very big. So I hope the country understands that. They continue to support us all in this fight, and we hope women's soccer keeps growing.
Their spirited displays at the 2019 World Cup came after years of fighting for equal treatment compared to their male counterparts. Argentina's women's team was so underfunded by its own federation that they did not play at all for 18 months between 2015 and 2017. Without a coach or direction, the future of women's football in Argentina was at a crossroads.
Football is still very male chauvinist. Look what we are doing. We have been fighting for many years, and still there's machismo from those who say, look, a woman playing football. The truth is that today many girls are playing football as well.
After years of neglect, the Argentine Football Federation took steps to rectify the dire situation of women's football in the country. A professional women's league was launched in 2019, with each team granted funds to pay the salaries of up to 8 players. The following year, a 5-year plan for women's football in Argentina was unveiled, with the strategy focused on youth, club licenses, and national competitions.
I feel a deep emotion and a great joy to have been able to achieve this. After a lot of hard work, that in the next season, Argentinian football can have a professional women's tournament. I'm also happy that ours is one of the first federations, almost worldwide, in which female players can be professionals.
Argentina will call on all their determination and resilience when they travel down under for the 2023 World Cup. While getting out of a group containing Italy, Sweden, and South Africa won't be easy, a maiden World Cup win would be a landmark moment for women's football back home.